Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, life keeps slipping through your fingers like water, like sand, like time itself? Have you noticed how exhausted you really are? Not just physically, but deep inside, tired of trying, of pushing, of constantly fighting against time, expectations, people, and even yourself. Maybe you don't always realize it, but there's a quiet, persistent weariness that grows from our endless attempts to control every aspect of life. You pressure yourself constantly to be more productive, stronger, more positive, more stable. You force decisions, cling to relationships, follow routines that feel hollow and lifeless. And the harder you push, the more life seems to resist, slipping away just when you think you have a grip. That's where an ancient principle offers a radical shift in how we live. Wu Wei, rooted in Taoist philosophy and translated by Alan Watts as acting without forcing, Wu Wei is not laziness or resignation. It is, in fact, one of the most profound expressions of wisdom and strength. It means aligning with the natural flow of things, moving in harmony with life, rather than struggling to control it. Think of a dancer who doesn't fight the music, but becomes one with the rhythm. Or a surfer who doesn't try to dominate the ocean, but learns to ride the wave. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often do you push what isn't ready? How often do you blame yourself for not controlling what was never meant to be controlled? How many of your choices are driven by fear, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough? Since childhood, we've been trained to believe that success only comes from effort, persistence, and relentless struggle, even when everything in us is screaming to slow down. As a result, we become anxious, disconnected adults, cut off from our own inner wisdom because we were never taught how to observe, how to trust, how to let go. Wu Wei is not about doing nothing. It's about doing with intention, with lightness, with respect for the natural timing of things. It's the difference between the exhausted rower battling the current and the wise sailor, adjusting their sails to move with the wind. Alan Watts once said that when you stop forcing life, something magical begins to unfold. The right opportunities arise. The right paths reveal themselves. The right answers emerge. Not because you forced them to appear, but because you finally made space for them to come through. And maybe, just maybe, you're here because something inside you already knows this. Because you've grown tired of the noise and the pushing. Because you're starting to feel the quiet call toward a different way of living. One that is gentler, truer, and more deeply your own. In the next part, we'll explore what it really means to live in flow and how embracing uncertainty might be the most powerful step you can take toward freedom. You've just begun to see how letting go can open the door to a more peaceful, authentic life. But to truly live that peace, you need to go deeper, not with effort, but with understanding. In the next few minutes, you'll realize that Wu Wei isn't just a poetic idea or a feel-good slogan. It's a key, a powerful, practical shift in the way you relate to life. When understood deeply, Wu Wei returns to you what you've been chasing all along through endless control, peace. But not the surface-level peace found in motivational quotes or short-lived affirmations. We're talking about the kind of peace that settles deep in your bones. The kind that comes when you stop fighting reality and begin moving in harmony with it. So, take a breath. Drop your shoulders. Be fully present. Because this is where the real journey begins. To understand Wu Wei at its core, we must go beyond pretty words or simplified ideas. We need to return to the ancient roots where this principle was born. Taoism and Zen. And here, I ask you for something unusual. something difficult in the world of fast content and instant answers. I ask you to forget, even for a moment, everything you've been taught about philosophy as rigid theory or intellectual debate. Taoism and Zen aren't meant to be solved like math problems or memorized like textbooks. They are not knowledge you store in your head. They are truths you feel in your body, in your breath, in the quiet spaces between thoughts. The Tao, which literally means the way, is not a list of commandments. It's not a rule book or a destination. The Tao is the invisible current that moves through all things, the way trees grow, the way seasons shift, the way life flows and returns in endless cycles, joy and sadness, beginnings and endings, everything moving to a rhythm far deeper than we can understand. Laozi, the Taoist sage who first wrote about the Tao, warned us clearly, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. Why? Because the moment we try to wrap life in words, it has already changed, evolved, moved on. The Tao is like the wind. You cannot hold it, but you can feel it. You can let it carry you, but you'll never capture it in a box. Zen, which emerged when Buddhism met Taoism in ancient China, embraces this same truth, but with even more radical honesty. Zen does not try to explain reality. It tries to strip away everything that prevents you from experiencing it directly. In Zen, there are no rigid beliefs, no dogmas to memorize. There is only presence, breath by breath, step by step, gesture by gesture. Taoism and Zen both whisper, or perhaps shout, the same uncomfortable truth. You are not in control. You never have been. And the more you try to control life, the further you drift from truly living it. What they offer is not an escape, but a return to trust, to fluidity, to the kind of innocence you once knew as a child when you could play without fear, fall without shame, and try without demanding perfection. But this is exactly where many people get lost. Because these ancient philosophies born in faraway cultures and shaped by a radically different view of reality often feel unreachable to the Western mind. A mind trained to analyze, to chase results, to fear uncertainty. And that is where one remarkable figure enters the story. A man who spent his life building a bridge between East and West, between spiritual insight and everyday life. His name is Alan Watts. In the next part of this journey, we'll dive into who Alan Watts was and how he brought these invisible truths into language we could finally hear. Alan Watts reminded us that Tao and Zen are not distant philosophies, but urgent remedies for our fractured lives. Now, let's step into the story of the man who built a bridge between two worlds, and might just open a new door inside you. Imagine a time when ideas like Tao, Zen, Wu, Wei, and meditation were dismissed in the West as oddities, strange whispers from distant cultures, exotic but impractical, and surely irrelevant to the fast-moving modern world. It was into this skeptical landscape that Alan Watts arrived, but he didn't come as a preacher or professor. He came as something far more vital, a translator of the soul, not just of language, but of worldview, not just of concept, but of presence. Watts wasn't some academic figure lost in abstract theories. He was a rebel thinker, a spiritual iconoclast who dared to question the foundations of Western logic. He understood something profound. The true barrier between East and West wasn't cultural misunderstanding, it was fear. Fear of letting go, fear of losing the illusion of control, fear of facing life without the armor of rigid beliefs and constant achievement. Alan Watts didn't try to convert people. He didn't demand belief. He sought to liberate. to free us from the suffocating pressure of endless goals, the obsession with results, and the emotional weight of living like machines. His mission was gentle, yet radical, to show that what we yearn for, peace, meaning, wholeness, cannot be found by conquering life. It can only be discovered by learning to be with it, fully, honestly, quietly. And Watts had a gift. He didn't speak with a preacher's tone or a scholar's stiffness. He flowed like a stream, inviting you into the current. His talks weren't lectures, they were invitations. He didn't give you answers, he stripped away the noise until only the truth remained. Often, that truth came not in explanations, but in metaphors. A river that flows without trying. A sailor who moves with the wind instead of fighting it. He reminded us that Tao and Zen were never about logic. They were about experience, about sensing the rhythm of reality and learning to move with it instead of against it. Life, Watts said, is like music. You're not supposed to rush to the end of the song. You're supposed to dance, to feel each note, each beat, without urgency, without fear. And that's what most of us have forgotten, isn't it? That life isn't a sprint, it's a melody. And Wu Wei, the art of not forcing, is the music we were always meant to move to, if only we'd learn to listen. Alan Watts didn't just teach, he awakened. He challenged an entire generation to rethink what it means to live well, to truly live, not just exist. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore the timeless lessons Watts left behind, and how they can still guide us in the chaos of today's world. You've just seen how Alan Watts used the river as a metaphor to expose the struggle we create when we force life. Now, let's dive deeper into that image and into yourself. Watts reminded us that as long as we keep trying to win at life through force and resistance, we are bound to lose something even more precious, our inner peace. His message still resonates not because he spoke only of ancient Eastern wisdom, but because he touched on wounds we all carry, the silent pain of modern life, the anxiety of trying to hold it all together, the ache of disconnection from the present moment. But he also knew one powerful truth. Knowledge alone doesn't liberate you. You can understand Wu Wei intellectually, nod along with his ideas, even repeat them, but if you're still paddling against the current in your everyday life, you're still suffering. That's why Watts emphasized not just understanding, but practicing. And it's here, in this practice, that the metaphor of the river reveals something truly life-changing. Close your eyes and picture it clearly. A wide, strong river, moving with steady power. It flows through mountains and forests, around rocks and fallen trees. In this river is a person struggling. Their arms flail, their breath shortens. They try with all their strength to move upstream, to resist the flow. But no matter how hard they try, they are pulled backward. The water doesn't slow for them. It doesn't change course. It just flows, indifferent and eternal. This is how Alan Watts described human suffering, not as something that life inflicts on us, but as something we create when we resist life's natural flow. The river isn't the problem, it's our refusal to move with it. Life presents change, loss, disruption, and rather than adapt, we fight. We cling to jobs, people, plans that have already passed. We exhaust ourselves trying to hold what can't be held, like water slipping through open fingers. Watts taught that life, like that river, has its own rhythm, its own wisdom. And the truth is, it doesn't need you to control it. In fact, the more you try, the more you suffer. Learning to flow doesn't mean becoming passive. It means moving in harmony with forces greater than you. Just like a surfer doesn't fight the wave, they learn to ride it. They listen, they wait, then they move. When you resist reality, you create friction. That friction builds tension in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. You may not see it at first, but over time it becomes chronic. Anxiety, fatigue, frustration, bitterness. The more you push, the more you break, and deep down, you may already feel it, like a quiet panic that never fully fades. But still, you keep pushing, because the fear of letting go feels worse than the pain you already know. But what if that fear is just an illusion? The river, in all its power, also carries a silent promise that peace is possible. Not by fighting harder, but by surrendering. Not by giving up, but by giving in to something wiser, more natural, more true. There is a way to live without constantly struggling. A way where, when you stop forcing life, you don't lose control. You find something far more valuable. You find yourself, and once you let go, you begin to realize the river isn't against you. It's not your enemy, it's your guide. It's carrying you toward places your mind could never plan, but your soul has always longed for. But for that to happen, you'll need something many people are afraid to embrace. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore what that something is, and how it can unlock the kind of freedom that doesn't just change your thoughts, but your entire way of being. You remember that idea from before, that letting go requires courage. Let's explore why that courage is more than a virtue. It's a lifeline in a world obsessed with control. To trust the flow of life, to surrender to what cannot be predicted or explained, takes immense strength. But this strength is not loud or aggressive. It's quiet, inward, and profoundly defiant in a culture that rewards only domination. From the moment we're old enough to understand, we're conditioned to fight, compete, win. We're told that if we don't take control, if we don't push harder, we'll fall behind, be forgotten, fail. And here's the truth: no one told you this relentless conditioning has built an invisible prison. A prison made not of bars, but of beliefs. You grow up hearing, "Don't give up. The world belongs to the strong. If you want it badly enough, you'll make it happen." And so, you begin to internalize a message. Rest is weakness. Surrender is failure. Ease is dangerous. But what if that message is the very thing that's destroying you? This belief that you must always be striving, forcing, managing, has become a silent burden on your mind, your body, your soul. Even when you're not working, you're thinking about what needs to be done. Even when you're resting, you're ashamed for not doing more. Alan Watts saw this clearly. He didn't just analyze culture. He diagnosed a civilization-wide illness, the worship of effort at the expense of being. In Western culture, doing has become more important than being. Rest is seen as suspicious. Stillness is labeled lazy. A moment of peace is something you must earn, rather than something you're entitled to as a living, breathing human being. We've replaced our connection to life with an obsession over optimizing it. More productivity, more goals, more information, more everything except meaning. In chasing all this, we become strangers in our own lives. Have you felt it? That deep emptiness that doesn't make sense. You study, you work, you plan, you succeed, and yet, something still feels hollow. Like you're checking every box, but missing the point. That feeling isn't a flaw. It's a signal. It's the soul calling out for what you've forgotten. Your connection to the natural rhythm of life, the Tao, that quiet intelligence within all things, that which can't be forced, only followed. But here's the problem. A mind trained to seek control resists this truth. It wants guarantees, certainty, formulas, and to get those things, it builds rigid plans, follows strict routines, and avoids anything unpredictable. But life doesn't follow scripts. When we try to control everything, we shut ourselves off from the very essence of life, the mystery, the beauty, the spontaneity. That moment of laughter you didn't plan, the chance encounter that changed your path, the feeling of being truly alive, even if you don't know what happens next. Alan Watts warned us, the more we try to control life, the more we separate ourselves from it. Imagine locking a flower in an airtight vault, hoping to preserve its beauty. You might keep its shape, but what do you lose? The fragrance, the life, the very thing that made it beautiful in the first place. And that's what control does to us. It keeps the form, but kills the spirit. But there is another way. A way back to something simpler, more human, more whole. In the next chapter, we'll begin to explore that way, not through more control, but through understanding how to finally release it, how to return to the present moment, not as something to manage, but as something to live. You've just seen how our obsession with control turns life into a rigid, exhausting routine. Now, let's take a breath and begin to imagine what it means to live with less pressure, but more presence. This mechanical way of living, where even your dreams and emotions are treated like tasks to manage, drains not just your energy, but your essence. Everything is scheduled, measured, optimized, and yet, the more you try to keep everything under control, the further you feel from peace. But what if there's another way? A way to live more lightly, without running away from your responsibilities, but by releasing the weight of imagined control? That's what we'll begin to explore now. How to bring Wu Wei, the Taoist principle of effortless action, into your daily, modern life. A life that never stops rushing, but deep down is starving for stillness. Because here's a powerful truth. Doing less isn't laziness, it's wisdom. And acting with less strain can paradoxically take you further than force ever could. If this message has stirred something in you, I invite you to explore further. My ebook, Beyond the Shadow, breaks down Jung's core insights and offers tools to help you reconnect with your deeper self. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. But for now, let's stay with the question at hand. How do we live Wu Wei in the middle of today's chaos? How do we flow with life when everything around us screams for speed, productivity, performance? Let's be honest, applying Wu Wei in real life isn't easy. It takes more than inspiration. It takes courage, because it demands a radical shift in how we define action, success, and meaning. Living Wu Wei doesn't mean quitting your job and disappearing into a forest. That's a common misunderstanding. It's not about avoidance or carelessness. It's not passive. It's not lazy. Wu Wei means acting, but from a different place. A place of calm attention, of inner alignment, of awareness. It means moving with reality, not against it. It's not about letting go of responsibility, but letting go of unnecessary struggle. In practice, Wu Wei starts with humility. The humility to admit you're not in charge of the universe, that there are forces moving through life much larger than you, and your power isn't in fighting them, but in learning to sense them, listen to them, respond to them. Think of it like a dance. You don't control the music, but you can learn to move with it. This requires slowing down, breathing, watching before reacting, resisting that inner urge to act out of fear. Fear of falling behind, of missing out, of losing control, and instead acting from clarity, from what truly matters. In daily life, Wu Wei looks like this: choosing quality over quantity, choosing depth over speed, choosing presence over panic. It means understanding that sometimes the most powerful action is the pause. The saying no is not selfish, it's sacred. It's honoring your limits. It's protecting your energy. And above all, it's about tuning out the noise of the world so you can finally hear your own voice again. That quiet inner whisper that's always been there, but buried under the pressure, the hustle, the chaos. The voice that knows what really matters. The voice that never needed to shout. Wu Wei also means trusting in the natural rhythms of life. There are times to act and times to wait, times to bloom and times to rest. But the modern world doesn't want you to rest. It's addicted to non-stop growth. It teaches you that stopping means losing. But Alan Watts reminds us of something else, something nature has known all along. And that's exactly where we're going next, into the rhythm of nature, into the seasons of being, and into the forgotten wisdom of winter. You've just seen that practicing Wu Wei in the modern world isn't passivity, it's a powerful act of conscious rebellion. Now, let's take a deeper breath and step into what that rebellion truly means. Understanding your essential place in nature's rhythm means realizing that sometimes the greatest transformation begins by simply being where you are, not trying to skip ahead, not forcing the next step. There is a quiet courage in choosing to pause, to stand still when the world is sprinting. And in that stillness, something profound happens. You begin to return to yourself in today's world. Practicing Wu Wei is like swimming against the tide of collective anxiety. But you're not doing it to be better than anyone else. You do it to avoid losing who you are. You do it to reclaim your peace. This practice pushes against the toxic mindset of scarcity, the belief that you are never enough, never fast enough, never achieving enough. Instead, it reconnects you with the truth that simply being, breathing, existing is already enough, already whole. But let's be honest, this shift isn't easy. It demands a new kind of awareness, because the old programming, the one built on control, speed, and proving yourself, will keep calling you back. It will whisper again and again, you're behind. You're not doing enough. You'll be forgotten if you slow down. And in those moments, you'll be standing at a powerful crossroads. Do you repeat the old patterns of resistance? Or do you trust the deeper current of life, the Tao, and let yourself flow? This is the moment where true transformation begins. A transformation that doesn't come through pushing harder, but through surrendering with awareness. And that's what we'll explore next. The quiet, radical power of letting go. The place where, paradoxically, when you finally stop forcing, everything begins to change. It's a moment every one of us faces, sooner or later, that deep internal fork in the road. You can keep pushing, grinding, insisting, swimming against the current until your spirit is worn down and your body is heavy from resistance. Or you can pause, breathe, and begin to let go. Alan Watts described this with piercing clarity. He said that real transformation doesn't come when you force life to change. It comes when you stop resisting what life is already trying to show you, what's already emerging just beneath the surface. And when you stop resisting, something unexpected happens. Space opens up, space for new paths, for new relationships, for opportunities you couldn't have planned, not because you figured it all out, but because you stopped getting in your own way. You reconnect with your inner compass, your intuition, your body, your breath. And suddenly, the Tao, the flow of life, begins to move through you again. Not as noise or pressure, but as quiet, natural alignment. That's what true freedom really is. It's not doing anything you want, whenever you want. It's being so deeply aligned with life that your actions are no longer reactions, they're responses. Calm, clear, whole. It's creating without burnout, acting without fear, loving without control. You stop managing life like a project, and you start participating in it like a sacred, ongoing dance. Of course, none of this happens overnight. Living this way takes practice, awareness, and the willingness to face fear when it returns, because it will. Fear of slowing down, fear of losing ground, fear of being left behind. But now you see it for what it is, and now you have a choice. So before we move forward, I'd like to offer you something small but powerful. You've just seen how everything begins to shift when you stop forcing and start allowing. Now, let's turn that insight inward to your own life. Take a moment, right now, to pause and really look. Where in your life are you forcing things? The most, is it a relationship that no longer flows naturally? A job that drains you, but you feel obligated to keep? A version of yourself you're trying to uphold, even though it feels exhausting? Where do you feel like you're endlessly swimming against the current, trying to control something that, deep down, simply needs to be accepted, understood, or released? You don't need to have the perfect answer, but naming it honestly and without judgment is already a powerful act. It's a first step toward releasing the grip, toward giving yourself permission to breathe. If you're comfortable, leave a comment below. Share where your biggest internal struggle is right now. You might be surprised how many people feel the same. Sometimes, just seeing our truth reflected in someone else's story gives us the strength to move forward. And if this message stirred something in you, if even a small part of you felt recognized, validated, or awakened, don't stop here. The next video isn't just the next piece of content. It's a crucial continuation of this journey. Together, we'll go deeper into how to live with more awareness, with gentleness, and with a quiet but profound presence. Your transformation isn't waiting in the future. It's already happening right now in your willingness to listen, to feel, and to let go. So stay with me. We're just getting started.